So I'm going to talk about topology hiding computation for all graphs. And to begin with, let's start with the example on Facebook. We heard a lot about Facebook, mostly bad stuff today, but let's start with the good stuff. Facebook is really great. It lets us communicate with a large community, upload messages, advertise apartments, send messages to many people, which is wonderful. But for the problem is that to use that, we need to trust Facebook. We use it as what's known in cryptography as a trusted third party. And this is a problem, because this can compromise our privacy. If we wanted to compute functions on our data that we upload and the social graph that we upload, then it has to know it if we use it as trusted party. So it holds both our personal data and the social graph, and at least for some of us, that's sufficient reason not to want to be on Facebook. So wouldn't it be great if we could have a decentralized social network? So we can still talk with all our friends in a large social graph, but without Facebook, no trusted third party, just with a peer-to-peer network talking to each other. And we would still want to be able to compute functions of our data and the social graph, but just with no trust whatsoever. Okay, so the cryptography expert in the room can say, well, isn't that what secure multi-party computation doing? Well, close, but not quite. So what does secure multi-party computation does? It tells you that multiple parties can jointly compute a function of their private inputs while revealing nothing beyond the output. But for the classical works in multi-party computation, the assumption is that the communication topology, in the Facebook example, the social graph that we talk on, is public. In the original works, it was assumed to be the complete graph, so everybody can talk with everybody. And then there have been subsequent works talking about more general topologies. But in all these works, a topology is public information. There's nothing secret about it. But in our case of Facebook or in general graph, the topology itself is a very sensitive information. If you know my social graph, you know a lot about me. And like Michael Hayden said, we actually even kill people based on metadata. So it's something that we definitely want to hide. So this is where topology hiding computation comes into play. It was a definition suggested by Moran, Orlov, and Richardson. And topology hiding computation is a multi-party computation that hides not only the input data, but also the communication graph. It has to hide both things. So this can be used to give this decentralized Facebook example when we protect the data and the graph, but it has many, many applications. Think, for example, of this world of tomorrow when we're going to have smart vehicles everywhere. These cars are going to talk with each other. This network of communication between them actually reveals a lot of information. It reveals our location. It reveals our speed of driving. This is sensitive information that we want to hide, even though they do some multi-party computation together, like where is the next police car, or where is an accident, etc. So to be a bit more technical, we think of the parties as being in some graph structure. This could be a physical network or a meta network like in a social graph. Each of them can communicate directly only with their neighbors. And our goal is that when given minimal information on the graph, say an upper bound of the number of nodes in the graphs, to be able to compute any function of the data and network without revealing anything beyond the function output. In particular, we want to reveal no more information about the graph. And when I say reveal no more information about the graph, it's in this strong definition of the simulation paradigm in cryptography. So if you think of this network being, with some of the nodes are hijacked by an adversary that can control the communication and sees everything going on there, we want what the adversary to see to be computationally indistinguishable than in the case that this adversary is never talking with this real network. Instead of talking with this network, it's talking with this simulator that can't reveal anything to the adversary because it doesn't know anything. All the simulator knows is just the output bit, which is what we're allowed to reveal. And yet it simulates the interaction with the adversary. And if the adversary can't tell the difference between these two worlds, then it actually learned nothing about this graph. In particular, if you look at the picture here, you see there's no edge between 1 and 2 because the adversary who's talking can only see the neighbors of its nodes, but it can't tell what are the connections between other nodes. Also, I don't have node 6 here because the adversary cannot tell that this node exists in a network because it's not a neighbor of the adversary. So this is the goal. And the first question to ask is if it's even possible. So first, to simplify things, it turns out that if we want to compute any functionality, actually all we need to be able to compute is topology hiding broadcast. What a broadcast means that one of the parties has a bit, 0 or 1, and he wants everybody in the network to know these bits. But he wants to do it in a topology hiding way, so that broadcasting itself doesn't reveal anything about the network. Once we do that, we can use other reductions to compute any functionality. So that's enough for us, and that simplifies our goal. So this is our new goal. Okay, so if you want to do broadcast, let's think of the naive protocol that wouldn't work. Say 2 wants to broadcast its bit, it can tell his bits to the neighbors, they would tell to their neighbors' neighbors, to the neighbors' neighbors' neighbors, etc. At the end, everybody knows the bits. So that's great for functionality, but it's not topology hiding. For example, just by the timing of when you receive the bit, you can know the distance to the broadcaster. That reveals information about the network. And in fact, the fact that it's difficult is not surprising because there are impossibility results saying that if we are working against an active adversary, a very simple active adversary that can only abort, you can say, I don't want to broadcast, I don't want to communicate anymore. Already against such a simple adversary, topology hiding broadcast is impossible. Essentially, an adversary can identify if the broadcaster is to one side of both the node's controls or, in the middle of them. So what can we do? If we are restricting ourselves to passive adversaries, one that cannot abort, they follow the protocol, but they listen to the messages and try to learn more information than they should. In this case, it was shown that topology hiding broadcast is possible for some topologies of the network. In particular, by Moran et al. It was shown that it exists if your graph is small diameter, which means that if you go just few steps, you can reach any node in the graph. It's a very well-connected graph. And the question that started my interest in this work is whether this small diameter is an inherent trait of topology hiding, or it's just an artifact of the proof methodology of these works. And what I showed in a work with Moran is that in fact, topology hiding broadcast is feasible also for some large diameter graphs, like cycles, trees, etc. But still, the question remains is whether it's possible for all graphs, not just for some particular graphs. And the answer we showed is yes. You can do topology hiding computation for all graphs against passive adversaries. And this is under standard cryptographic assumptions like DDH or even other assumptions like Radakis-Zotisi or LWE, etc. DDH is just L-Gamal-based, decisional Diffie-Hellman. And the proof methodology is saying, let's start with the hardness assumptions, say decisional Diffie-Hellman. First, we construct a public encryption with some special properties. We needed to have some homomorphic and privately key commutative properties. I'll say in a minute what this means. And these are all things that I can get just from El-Gamal. So I don't need any fancy encryption. I just show that it's possible from them. And then using this encryption scheme, I can get topology hiding broadcast on cycles graph. And in the follow-up work with Rio Levine, we show that if I have topology hiding broadcast for cycles, I can get it for every network topology, for every graph. So let's see, how much time do I have? 3 more minutes, okay. So let me show you the high-level idea of a protocol. So first, when I say broadcast, it's enough actually to compute the OR functionality. If I have a bit for every party, what I want to compute for broadcast is the OR of all these bits, if I think of all the bits except for the broadcaster as being 0. So the first property I need from my function is to be OR homomorphic. OR homomorphic means that if I have an encryption for some bit B1 and for another bit B2, I can compute the encryption of the OR of these bits without opening this encryption, without needing the secret key. And I need this to be secure in the sense that I don't even know how many bits I ORed. If I have just a fresh encryption of 1, or 1 ORed with 0, or 1 ORed with 1, it would all look the same to me. And this is possible with El-Gamal. So now the idea is that I want to encrypt the input the first try. I want to encrypt the inputs and then homomorphically do this naive broadcast when I send my ciphertext and homomorphically OR these messages. The problem with this is that I am able to get the ciphertext of the OR of all bits, but how do I decrypt? I need someone to have the secret key to decrypt, and if he has the secret key, then he compromises security. So to overcome this property, we need a second property of the encryption, which is this onion type encryption property. I want to be able to add encryption layers and to delete encryption layers. So adding layer means that if I have a ciphertext encrypting a message M and some fresh secret key, I can get a ciphertext for a message wrapped by these two layers of decryption, the blue one and the yellow one. And it would actually look just as a fresh ciphertext encrypted by the product of these public keys. So pictorially, you just see these colors merged, one color. And I can also delete the layers. If I have these encryption ciphertext under merged keys, and I have the secret key for one of these layers, I can peel it off and get the ciphertext under just one layer and not both. So how do I use it? This is the protocol for a cycle graph. It's going to work in two phases, a forward phase, where I just add encryption layers and gradually add more and more bits to my homomorphic OR while adding more and more encryption layers. So then whenever any party that adds the OR of its bit knows that it adds an encryption layer so that the other parties can't read what's underneath it. And the backward phase when I'm going to remove these encryption layers until at the end I'm going to have the clear text answer of the OR of all bits. So let's look how the forward phase looks from the perspective of just one node, this node 1. I'm going to do the same in parallel for all the nodes. So what is node? Each node has a bit, and we want to compute the OR of all these bits. The node is first going to choose sample a pair of secret and public keys. It's going to encrypt this bit and send it forward to its neighbor. This neighbor is going to add his own encryption layer with fresh keys that he samples, or compute the OR of the bit that he received with his own bit, and send that forward for the next node. The next node is going to do the same. He's going to add an encryption layer with fresh keys, compute the OR with his own bit, and send it forward, and so forth, until at the end we're going to get a ciphertext encrypting the OR of all the bits under the public keys of all the users. So this ciphertext, nobody on its own can open it, because you need to know the secret keys of all the users on the cycles. And now we just do the backward phase that gradually peels off the layers. We send this ciphertext back, and each node peels off the layer that he added. Until at the end, node 1 gets the clear text message of the OR of all bits. And this we do not just for one node, we do it simultaneously for all the nodes, so that at the end, everybody gets the clear text message of the OR of all the bits in the graph. And security here follows from the fact that all you see is ciphertext, so the semantic security guarantees that the message, the content, doesn't reveal any information. And the metadata is the same for all nodes. You just receive a message from your predecessor, wrap it with your new layer, and push it forward to your successor. So the metadata is identical to all nodes. What do we hide here? We hide the order of the nodes on the cycle. We know it is a cycle, but we hide the order. So what about general graphs? So the idea is, 2 more minutes? 1. So here is the idea. For cycles, this protocol worked because we had a way to traverse all the nodes in the graph in some prescribed order. We just went from the first to the second to the third along the cycle. What about other general topologies? The idea is that we can use something known as random walks. A random walk means we start from the node and we just take a random step to some random neighbor. And if we do these random steps long enough, we are guaranteed to visit all the nodes in the graph. So this gives us a traversal that traverses all the nodes in the graph, even though we do not know the topology of the graph. Now, it's not quite as simple as that. I will need to know, I will need these walks that I do from all the nodes to be correlated. Because if I don't correlate, if they're purely random walks, then a node randomizing the messages he sends can send, for example, 3 messages to one neighbor and none to some other neighbors. And this reveals to this node 4 a lot. Now he knows that 3 has at least 2 other neighbors besides itself. So instead we're going to do correlated random walks where each node just chooses a permutation and sends the messages that it receives to a random neighbor under the constraint it's a permutation, that each neighbor gets exactly 1 message. Okay, so I don't think I have time for the security and correctness proof, so just a few comments. One thing is that we use random walks, but these can be de-randomized. There's something known as universal exploration sequence, which is a deterministic prescribed order of operations. Go to this neighbor or to that neighbor that is guaranteed to traverse all the nodes in any graph. So this can be de-randomized. As I promised you, the assumption that with DDH can be altered to be quadratic residuosity or learning with errors with just some more work showing that it satisfies the properties that we need from the underlying encryption scheme. And in summary, what we show is that there's topology hiding computation, for all graphs against passive adversary. To achieve this, we needed a public encryption scheme with special properties and the design of correlated random walks. And to conclude with open problems, so one open problem is what to do with stronger adversaries, like the failstop adversaries against which we had impossibility result. It turns out that if you have extra assumptions, then you can still say some meaningful things about them. For example, if you assume that you have secure hardware plus some leakage on the topology, or even just leakage on the topology, you can still gain some form of topology hiding computation. Jumping to the end, one more very interesting problem, open problem, is what to do with the dynamic graphs. If we think of the problem of topology hiding computation on a network of moving vehicles, the network itself keeps changing over time. So how to do topology hiding MPC on this network is a very interesting open problem. So thanks, and this is a review of the protocol.